Okay, so you have folded all of your tissue papers and you're ready to tie-dye them. For our tissue paper dyeing, we're going to be using liquid watercolors. We have tried painting color on with brushes and watercolor, pan watercolors. We've tried using marker and all sorts of different techniques, but this is by far and away the technique that gets you the best results. So we're using this liquid watercolor, and I have made liquid watercolors from leftover pan watercolor. I've made it from dried out markers. So there's a variety of ways. You can always order liquid watercolors, which is what I have here, are just liquid watercolors that I ordered from an art supply store. So we have to have our liquid watercolors. You're also going to need some pipettes, which our amazing science teacher allowed me to borrow. So I found those work really well. You're also going to need a mat or paper on the surface that you're working on, as well as at least one, if not more, paper plates with your name written on them, okay? So these paints are non-toxic. They will stain your hands. You can see my hands often have liquid watercolors on them. It does wash off, but it will leave your hands a little bit stained for a little while. So, working on top of the mat, I'm gonna start with our starburst design and how we actually are gonna tie-dye this one, because this is the only one that, this is one of the only ones that I feel like it's important to really think about where you're actually placing it. I guess it's probably, important to think about it actually on all of them, but for this one, there is a specific technique I do teach, is what I'm trying to say, but I'm not doing it too eloquently. Okay, when you go to pick your colors that you're using, I want you to think about your knowledge of color theory. So you've learned about primary colors, you've learned about analogous colors, colors that complement each other, colors that when they get side by side don't always play nicely together. So these are all the things I need you to be thinking about as you're tie-dyeing each of these designs. All right, so for this one, what we are going to do is we are going to start with our first color. So I'm going to actually start with purple. So I squeeze the top of the pipette, and I am going to just gently press on the end of the pipette, and I'm thinking about this being in a circular motion. I'm trying to keep most of the color on the tissue and not on the surface underneath. Okay, so I'm going to speed this process of dyeing up in the video, but I wanted to show you what it looks like. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip it over to see if the color has gone through on the back. So I can see that in some areas it did, and some areas it didn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some color to the back of it, and I'm just going to repeat the same colors, and I'm going to speed it up this time. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next ones. When I'm done dyeing all of them, I'm going to be moving them to the plate. If I'm running out of space and I'm not done, I can pick up one that I've completed and carefully put it onto the plate. If it runs or drips, I wouldn't worry too much about it, but you do want to make sure that you're leaving this folded together. If you have color here and you put your other piece that you're doing on top, understand that the back side of this will pick up that color. I'm just gonna go with it and not worry about it, and I'm gonna repeat those colors. I'm gonna work from the top down on this one just because I already know I have some of these colors here. And I'm thinking about kind of trying to keep it rounded, and I'm also trying to think about colors that are gonna work nicely together. Okay, I'm gonna flip it over and check the back side to make sure that there's color there, and if there's not, I'm gonna apply color to the back too. Okay, so now I'm gonna move on to the scrunchie one, and I'm gonna try using, I just used warm colors, so let's try using all cool colors on this one. I'm just gonna set it aside to dry on my plate. We'll go ahead and do this one next. Okay, I'm just gonna flip it over and make sure that the color has gone through on the other side. And a lot of this will spread out as it's going, but if you're worried about having too much white, which is not a huge problem if you do have white, you can just flip it and add more color to it. You'll notice that when I am getting a color, the pipettes always remain in the color jar that they started in. So I'm not switching pipettes into different containers, because that would mix the watercolors and ruin them. Okay. And I've got this little triangle fold one that I'm gonna do next. Trying to think about the colors I want to do. Flip it over. If you need to move it to a new spot, you can. You could try a different combo on the back. You can keep with the same combo of colors. It's really up to you. Thing is with this, I would encourage you to just go for it and not overthink it. If you make one and it doesn't look beautiful, oh well, make another one, right? So. Okay. So I'm gonna put them all on my plate, or if you need 2 plates, we can do that, but you wanna make sure your name is on there. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let these dry for at least 24 hours. It could be less depending on how warm it is outside, but I like to leave them for about a day, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about unfolding them. We'll take a look at them and see how they turned out. All right, be back in a bit. Okay, so these are the completed pieces of tie-dye. I did record myself unfolding all of them, but it was really pretty boring. So I'm just gonna go ahead and show you what each piece looks like once it's been finished. I'm gonna start with my least favorite and work towards my favorite. I will let you know that I do tend to, once they're done, I use a very cool iron to flatten these out just to get a better look at what they actually look like when we're done. So this was the triangle fold, so one of these ones that we did in the video. This is the final piece. This was the scrunchy one. It was still a little bit damp when I undid it. And at first I really disliked it, but it's actually grown on me a little bit since undoing it. This is the accordion fold. These ones always turn out really nicely. It's definitely one of my favorites. This one and the next two are always, they always produce really good results. The scrunchie and the triangle can be hit and miss. So this was the accordion fold. This was the reverse starburst. For this one and the next one, these are the two hardest ones to unfold. You really do want to take your time when you're unfolding those. Be careful not to tear them. Tissue paper's really thin, so take your time. When I was recording it, I think it took me about 5 minutes for the next one I'm going to show you. This one probably took 3 to 4 minutes just because I'm really careful so that I don't end up tearing it. So this again was the reverse starburst, or the diamond. And then this is the starburst one. And this one always takes the longest to unfold. So there you go. Those are the final results. Again, I feel like the starburst, the reverse starburst, or the diamond, and the accordion always give you the best results. But have fun and try the other ones as well. Make sure that when you're working with pieces that have string, that you use scissors to cut them off. And again, just take your time unfolding them. And if you're up for it, take a cool iron and iron them nice and flat to really see the design. That's it. Have fun tie-dyeing tissue paper with watercolors.